email, then that way you can just have my laptop on you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can just read it from my phone.
Okay, cool.
I'll get rid of my 5 million tabs that are open. Okay, there we go.
Okay. I'm Avonlea Schnitzius, and I'm going to be coaching Kylie today. And I'm going to turn this over to Kylie to give some background on her big talk, the background on it, and like kind of why she chose it and whatnot.
Okay, so we're gonna be talking about so like in schools how there's like this really big it's like pressure to solve like the world's problems. However, like public education as it stands now doesn't equip students to tackle those problems. So my like overarching point is that schools need to include so like arts and experience in classes versus just teaching content in order to prepare students to face these new challenges, because like ultimately like you can teach a kid as much as you want, but if they don't understand how to apply that in the real world to the experiences like that they're going to have, then it's not going to do any good. It's just like empty information. So I kind of talk about in the beginning like some high school stereotypes, and then I talk about like my own experiences and how like in high school I didn't fit in, and then I talk about how music kind of like brought me out of that, and then how that was the experience of music, and then how like I used that in high school, but then that's just like my like intro hook part of it. And then I'll talk about how like students today are faced with like challenges that like previous generations could have never like expected. So why are we still teaching public education in the same way that we have for like over 100 years? So I'll talk about how there's no like clear answer, but that a way to get towards like equipping students to be armed with experience by including like arts classes and like creative outlets, as well as providing experiences for students rather than just content. So we'll be going through there, and then I am also so I'm an education major, so I'm English education, but I have a minor in comm studies, and then I'm thinking about adding another minor in linguistics. So that's just a little bit of background. So I'll be in schools a lot, and I spend a lot of time in schools now. So I have like a lot of experiences to draw on in terms of like observing this in the classroom, but I haven't really like included that in my speech yet, so I'm not sure if I want to, but we'll get there. So I'll just go ahead and get started. Okay. So I'm gonna start out with like just like a blank slide. So imagine some high school stereotypes that you faced. We can associate jocks with being cocky and dumb, or a band geek with glasses and a nasally voice. There might even be the horse girl who we're limited to and loves horses. But how do we challenge these stereotypes? I've asked myself this question a lot, and it's something that I've never really come to a clear answer for. I never found a niche to fit into while I was in high school. I didn't have money. I liked the popular kids. I thought band was stupid. I hated dancing, so show choir was completely out. And I don't have an athletic bone in my body. So making friends sucked. In fact, I would have said I was more friends with my teachers than my peers. So how did I go from this antisocial 15-year-old to the president of a sorority of 125 women at 21? Music. And I don't mean any kind of music, I mean rock music. So when I was 16, there was a group of guys who decided that they needed someone to play the keyboard for them. By the time that I was 18 and graduating high school, these boys were my best friends. My high school experience was defined by the time I spent with those guys. My high school experience was not defined by what occurred in my math class or even in my science class. Students today are faced with challenges that previous generations never could have dreamed. The prevalence of technology has has infiltrated all aspects of everyday life, and it defines the way that we communicate, the way that we have fun, the way that we develop our own sense of morality, and everything in between. It has also forced us to come to grips with brand new challenges, and if we do not cope with these challenges, then we are left behind. So, if all of this is true, that students today are faced with brand new problems never seen before, then why is the structure of public education unchanged for the last century? I don't have a clear answer. What I do know is that something needs to change. This change doesn't have to be a national overhaul of public education, at least not yet. Right now, we must change the way that students experience school. Teaching them standardized material in predetermined, unwavering ways will never prepare them to face the challenges of the future. In order to change the school experience, we need music. But not just music, we need art. We need culinary lessons. Not only do we need these creative outlets, but we need experience. We need internships, we need job shadowing, and we need field trips. We need to take students outside of just their everyday lesson plan and their everyday school schedule and take them out into the world and allow them to experience the life that it is around them. There are various philosophers who are within like the field of education who've talked a lot about this. There's like Vygotsky, who talks a lot about how you can teach a student anything, but that just goes to their head. But if you allow a student to experience something, then it goes to their heart. And so that's something that's going to stick with students a lot longer than just the essay that they wrote in their English lit class. So in order to allow students to problem solve and be creative and to keep influencing the field of technology that's around them, they need these creative ways to go about it. So, in conclusion, creativity and experience in schools.
Okay. Well, no, you're fine. Okay. Well, first of all, just kind of some general feedback. I think your topic, since you have such a, I guess, experience with it and such a past with it, and so you can kind of give your personal testimony with it, I think that really makes for your speech to really resonate with the audience, because you're able to show that you're an example of how you want the school systems to add more in. So I think that is definitely one of your really strong points. And I really liked, I think it's called imagery, about the stereotypes that you outlined in like your first couple sentences about the jocks and whatnot, and how you kind of went into like, how did I go about, I can't remember what the exact sentence was, but you were talking about how you went from relating more and being more friends with your teachers and your classmates, and like then you went into talking about how you really found yourself through rock music and that band with the guys from your high school. I really liked that point. And so let's go starting out. Let's do some line by lines. What if you restarted the beginning? Because I liked how you were talking about the different stereotypes and all that stuff. What if you tried doing that introduction, but in a different way, like more just starting out with a more attention grabber. Imagine this, like something that like, because like what you have, everybody can relate to, obviously, the jocks and whatnot. Maybe if you started out with just that in the beginning to kind of get everyone's attention, because everyone can relate in the classroom to being a jock or not fitting in, or being in musical theater or being in show choir or not fitting in with one of those things. Do you want to start by redoing that, but like trying a different method just to see how it were to work? Okay,
let's do it. Okay, so I'm gonna like say like the stereotype, and then I'll like reintroduce it, kind of. I'll like start off with the stereotype. Okay, so jocks, they're dumb and cocky, right? Band geeks, they wear glasses and they talk in a nasally voice. And there's the horse girls too. They were limited too, and they love horses. Now, I want you to picture yourself. So you're back in high school, and you're sitting in a classroom, and you have all these people around you, and you have your stereotypical classmates. we all know these stereotypes, but how do we challenge them? I've asked myself this a lot.
Yeah, no, that was actually that, because you talk about the whole like limited to thing. The horse girls, I definitely get that. That actually like, because your first opening one was definitely already grabbed my attention, but like by you starting out by jocks, like blah blah blah, and then you going into like the horse girls, we're limited to, or like the people that don't fit in, like I think that resonated a lot better and kind of woke people up a little bit, or for me at least. So then going from there. When did you talk about the experiences and the internship part? Was that in the body?
Yeah, kind of in like the middle. Or the internships I mentioned in like the last kind of part of it.
Okay. Okay, hold on.
No worries.
Oh.
It's all good. I started a new one.
Okay, so how about I'll come in really quick and be like, I'm going to be coaching Kylie. I'm going to let Kylie take it over, and then I'll come in and be like, go back and do it. Like, if that makes any sense.
I'm getting it all. Hello. In probably like 30 minutes. Well, I could probably, depending on when you go, I can meet you there. Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't matter. Okay, just let me know what what you're doing, and I'll. Okay, cool. Bye. Idiots.
Okay, so tell me when you're ready, and I'll come in first. Be like, I'm gonna be.
Yeah, you're good. Oh, but we can just combine like the two videos. Like, I'll go into
you're
photo
right. I
booth.
always forget newer Macs can do stuff like that.
Yeah, so we're good. We're at like I think like 14 minutes right
Okay,
now.
so what were we just talking about? So
The experience in the body.
Okay, yeah. So
I say, well, in the middle, I talk about like my so my high school experience was defined by the time I spent. So with those guys, my high school experience was not defined by what occurred in my math class or my science class. And then at the end is where I introduced like the internships thing. So I think I want to like talk about that more and like go into depth about like how like these experiences can impact like you like going to college and things. But I just am like not fully developed there. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know. But
No,
maybe
you're
you
good.
can also add some like what you had gained from having an internship and like what you had seen with people that didn't have internships or didn't have the actual work experience, like the differences between the two and how like you feel more equipped because of it compared to people that had it all in high school but didn't really have that experience and now are, doing what?
Right. The thing I think like I'm struggling with is like maybe the conclusion, like how to really like wrap it up in a way that is gonna have like a good final impression.
Maybe you try, this is just an idea, but maybe you try going back to like, because I thought your imagery and like your whole like, imagine this, like the jocks and the every type of people in high school and whatnot, and like where you fell into that, maybe in the end bring that back and be like, now think back to like what I had first just said about the different stereotypes and like whether and wherever you were, like talking to the audience, wherever you were in that stereotype and in those high school groups, like what did you got, like talking to the audience, like what did you gain from that? How do you think your like status in high school and your experiences or the experience you didn't have like shaped who you are now in college, or how it didn't help you? Because I think that's like a really cool point to go off of. But then also I really liked how you talked about how we need more art and stuff like that in high school to prepare us for the future, because we're all like so focused on standardized testing and whatnot. Right. You could also pull something in about how Ball State doesn't even require, I guess now for the incoming classes, the test scores. Isn't that correct?
True. Yep.
So, like, obviously, like, they don't matter that much anymore. And a lot of, I don't know if your high school did it. I know mine started doing it when I was a senior, where they started having, instead of, like, an actual final exam, we just did projects instead. So they were starting to, like, step more away from it. So, obviously, there was a gap in sometimes people aren't good test takers, and sometimes they are good test takers, but you can't really see people's strengths and weaknesses from one format.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point to bring up, is about like how a lot of things are project based. Like, well, and especially in college too. Like everything is project based. I don't really have a whole lot of tests. Oh shit.
Yeah.
But I think that is a good thing to bring up. I think that'll kind of help to tie. I think I'm gonna tie it in with the challenges part and like talk about how like that's a better way to accommodate.
Or what you could even do is just think about this for the introduction. You could try it as giving like a description of like who you were in high school, since you said that like you felt like you didn't really fit in anywhere, but like how did you become in college now being like the sorority president and having all these goals and doing so much with your life, like you would have never, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like trying it that way just to see how it would sound.
Yeah, maybe. What if I did that as like my ending and said, and so like go back to high school and be like, all right, so in high school, blah, 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 like this was me. And like now go back and think about how you were in high school.
And how much like you've changed and transformed into the person like you are in college now.
Right.
And it was it through the standardized testing and the math classes you took? Is that what your main part was that you remembered? Because it wasn't mine, obviously.
Exactly.
Or was it like the stuff you were involved in and the people you met that helped you become the better you?
I like that. I like that a lot.
So do you want to go back and just try what we just talked about in a different format just to see how it feels and whatnot?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll see if I can do like the conclusion maybe.
Okay.
Or like at least like I'll start like kind of halfway through and then go from there. Okay. So if this is true, so that students today are faced with brand new problems that have never been seen before. So then why is the structure of public education unchanged for the last century? I don't have a clear answer, but what I do know is that something needs to change. Now, this doesn't have to be a national overhaul of public education, at least not yet. Right now, we must change the way that students experience school. Teaching them standardized material in predetermined and unwavering ways will never prepare them to face the challenges of the future. In order to change the school experience, we need music, but not just music. We need art. We need culinary lessons. Not only do we need these creative outlets, but we need experience. We need internships, we need job shadowing, and we need field trips. Now, a lot of high schools are adopting programs where you can have an internship and leave after, say, 5th period. Some of them even offer programs where you can go to work and miss out on your last 2 or 3 periods of the day. But what are schools doing before that? Well, students are in classrooms, they're in 45-minute periods, and they're not expanding upon the experiences both they're having outside of the classroom. They're just living the same lessons every day. So in order to make these experiences worthwhile that students are having outside of the classroom, we have to continue to develop their sense of problem solving and their development of their morality, and equipping them to be creative and giving them a structured opportunity to succeed as well as to fail, so that they can take these feelings and these experiences outside of school. School is meant to be a place for safe experiences where students, in the case that say that they do, or that they're not succeeding at what they're doing, they have the opportunity to redo it, and they have the opportunity to be coached on it and to learn from it, whereas in the real world they won't have those opportunities. So if we don't allow them to have that experience in school, then they won't understand how to accommodate that in the real world. So by accepting that most colleges and universities and jobs even are project-based, where they're collaborative and they're innovative, we need to prepare students to feel like they are able and feel confident in their abilities to complete these projects. So I'm going to think back to my own high school experience and how I was. I remember that I did an internship actually with my principal, and that experience far outlasted the experience that I had in, say, my my AP Lit class. So by being involved in things and by having these experiences, we're able to better influence who we will be later in life. And yeah, we're going to stop there for now.
Okay, so I thought that was a lot better and a lot more in depth to work with. And going off of that, I think was one of your first points about public schools and like how they've changed, and like not how they've changed, but how you think they should be changing with everything from test scores and real life experiences. And I don't know if this is something you would want to like put into your thing, but you could also talk about or like add how you said like we need music, not just music, but like we need art, or like we need inspiration, we need real life experiences, because real life experiences, like how, because like that's a hard thing with like even jobs. How do people expect us to have job experience when they won't hire us because we don't have any prior job experiences? So like we need life-changing experiences that change us as a whole and make us better and whatnot. And you could also add something in there about like how you talk about the lessons and like basically how they equal grades, and basically that equals like class status, and then that is all just to go to college. But what does that do for you like self-empowering wise? So I guess you could tie something in there about like how teachers, I don't know if you like thought about this, or like if that's what you were getting off of, like teachers need to find other ways to self-empower their students because everybody's brains work in a different way. I don't know if you can tie somewhere in there, like I'm not exactly sure how it is, but some people are more like visual learners, some people are good with numbers, or some people are good with like, I don't even know all that stuff, but tie somewhere in there everything, how people learn in different ways, so it's not fair to judge like everybody on the same scale, which ties back again with the whole life experience thing, because that's like the major thing that is going to make you and break you in your future is the experiences you've had, like the hands-on experiences. And then you could also, I think, tie somewhere in there, you could like compare, because I'm sure there's like in different countries, I'm sure there's more schools outside of the US that have like already thought about this, so maybe like show the statistics about how schools that like are more hands-on, or even like the Montessori schools, if you know what those are.
Right.
Because my little sister went to one of those, and those people feel more equipped and they're more self-empowered because they found their strength through various outlets and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point to bring up, is about like allowing people to learn from their experiences is more effective at differentiation, so accommodating to students who do have like differing needs in terms of how they learn best and how they show what they learned best.
Yeah.
So that's like, I think that going off of experience is a more like natural way of differentiating, and to be honest, it's less work from like a teacher's end, because like you don't have to plan to have like 4 different prompts for an essay or something.
Exactly.
Like you're just like, so it's just like flowing a lot more.
Because that's just gearing towards one person or one student's type of learning.
Right.
And then I liked how you tied in when we first had talked about the various philosophers, and you had said like that had worked. Obviously, I liked that point because that like gives some credit to like obviously like your credentials or whatever are your experience to that what you've seen, but also like the various philosophers. I thought that was good, and the generations too. you could also kind of play off the whole generations by showing how, like, over the generations, like, maybe talking about how, like, so much stuff has, like, in schools, our generations or before or whatever, like, so many things have improved, but still what hasn't improved is, like, the way we focus so much on these tests and these grades, but not on the experiences, and, like, we still aren't really doing that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like in college we do that a lot more, which also you could tie in again in the ending about how you came to be more confident in everything and getting this position with your sorority, and how did you get here? Because of experiences, because you were given those opportunities, but, like, there's just not a lot of room in high school, I feel like, and in grade school to have those opportunities to, like, self-empower you. And there's also that whole topic of, because I know I was that student that I did not do good on tests. So, like, it's more that whole, I can't think of what it's called, where, like, you have this self-prophecy or whatever that, like, people say you're going to fail.
Yeah, it's like test anxiety.
Yeah, so, like, you're like, I'm just going to fail, not because you weren't prepared, but because you didn't prepare because you already said you were going to fail.
Exactly.
So it's all just kind of, like, about self-empowerment.
Yeah, I think I think that'll be a better way to end it, is, like, on how experience for me has led to success. So it's not far-fetched to say that, like, others are, like, succeeding because of the experiences that they have.
Yeah.
I think that'll be a good way to, like, bring it back together. Well, like, while you were talking too, I also thought about, like, to expand upon my point about, like, when, well, how, like, the structure of public education is pretty much, like, unchanged. How, like, you can look at pictures of a schoolhouse and look at the classroom, like, that you're in now, and they're pretty similar. Like, you pretty much know what a classroom is going to look like before you walk into it.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be something to like further illustrate.
Yeah.
Things are largely unchanged.
Mm-hmm.
That might be.
Yeah, no, I think that definitely so far sounds really good. And I think definitely, because you're obviously you have a natural talent for speaking. You have no problem giving a speech and whatnot. And do you want to go back and start from the beginning again, and maybe just do your whole intro again, and then instead of going right through the body, just get to what you want to do, or, like, after we've talked about the changes, how you want to improve your conclusion, or how you want to work with it, or what, just kind of how you're feeling.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, let me make some, like, clear notes of what I want exactly for the conclusion. So, intro, and then body.
And then also in the beginning, because I have the same problem where I always feel like I'm so formal and, like, so serious about my talks that I have a hard time where, like, I'm trying to implement some humor that, like, I just don't think I can ever get there. So maybe, like, when you're talking about, like, the stereotypes in the beginning, like, try using, like, I have the same problem. So try, like, it's hard to do, but try using a different voice where, like, you're...
I get what you mean.
Yeah, like, you're like, imagine this, or we all know these people in high school or whatnot. Like, try using a different voice. So then, like, when you finally talk about in your, like, body about what your whole main cause and your big idea, that everybody can see in the shift in your voice, the shift of where you're going.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, yeah, it does. Okay, so we're just gonna wing it. Okay. All right, so we've got jocks. they're cocky and they're dumb. We have the band geeks. They wear glasses and they talk in a nasally voice. We've got the horse girl. She wears limited too, and she loves horses. So we've all experienced these stereotypes in our own experience.
No, you're fine. Just keep going.
So take yourself back to high school. You're sitting in a classroom and you're surrounded by all of these stereotypes of people that you've grown up with. But how do we challenge these stereotypes? I've asked myself this a lot. I never found a niche to really fit into. I didn't have money, so I wasn't part of the popular crowd. I thought band was stupid. I hated dancing, so show choir was way out. And I don't have a single athletic bone in my body. So making friends sucked. In fact, I would have said I was more friends with my teachers than my peers. So how did I go from this antisocial 15-year-old to the president of a sorority of 125 women at 21? Music. And I don't mean any kind of music, I mean rock music. And then skipping down.
Okay, wait, I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
When you say music, I mean, it's all up to you. It's your speech. But maybe it's just me, but when I'm thinking of music and then rock music, maybe add some more in there. Be for me, it was music, rock music. But overall, it's life, it's experiences. You know what I mean? Does that make?
I could say, so I could go music. And I don't mean any kind of music. I mean, I mean rock music. And I don't just mean rock music, but I mean the experience of playing rock music.
Yeah. Add some more in the experience and how that. Yeah, that was really, really good. Add some more, which you did. Because what I'm getting at is your overall objective is it doesn't have to be for any one music. It could be anywhere in the arts category, whatever experiences they have had.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Just for reference, I think we're at 36 minutes.
Awesome. Okay. Tell me when you're ready to do the conclusion then, because your body so far, obviously, you have a bunch of more points you want to add in there, but
yeah.
I'm just kind of focusing on right now the conclusion and the intro.
I think that's the most important part.
Yeah.
The body counts, but it's not everything. People are going to kind of zone out in the middle.
Yeah.
So what you say
it's always the first and the last. Yep.
Okay. So I'll go and say, so the world is problem-based, and we, as the future of the world, are solving problems. We are solving problems in various ways that require creativity and critical thinking. These are skills that you can't find by reading a book. These aren't skills that you can find by taking a test or filling out a worksheet. These are skills that can only be built by experience. So experience is what builds us, and it's what shapes us, and it's what prepares us for the future and for taking on various roles in the future. Experience has prepared me for the success that I have felt in my collegiate career. But my experience has also failed me in various ways, because in my high school experience, I didn't feel challenged. I didn't feel like I was experiencing the world as it was. I was experiencing the world through the lens of public education and through a public classroom. So we have to be able to see past these various barriers and overcome them in order to get to the experience that is really what's going to matter in our professional lives and in our social lives and even in our personal lives, because that's what's going to prepare us to be active members of society after we are out of school or out of college. And this is what's going to matter.
Yeah, no, that was great. So,
something like that.
Yeah, no, that was really good. So basically, just kind of some last things. I thought that was a lot better, and I thought the way you were using your voice in the introduction was a lot better too. Not saying it the way you were doing it to begin with. It was just, it had more umph to it. Yeah, it kind of was a little hit or whatever it's called. I don't even know. But it had just something to it that you're being funny, and then you're like, here's the problem, and here's how it affected me and whatnot. And then with your conclusion, I liked how you had talked about your own experience, and it's like not just critical, or it's not just tests and grades and whatnot. It's creativity, and it can't be learned just through critical thinking or whatever you had said about on that basis. And I also thought, I don't know, just a point, you could also add somewhere like to wrap it all together. When you're doing your conclusion, you could be like, so how did I go from being a girl and a 15-year-old girl in high school that
like just use that line again.
Yeah, where I didn't fit in and whatnot. And you did it through trial and error. You did it through the experiences you had. And basically high school children, or not high school teenage kids and young adults, that's the only way they're going to get there is through experience. So I guess you could add something in there and just have some major sentence or whatnot for your last like closing sentence before you end on just something to kind of wrap it all together. Maybe it was something you had said during the beginning about the stereotypes, or like, so like when you think of yourself in whatever social group you were in high school, those experiences you had, whether that be like a basketball game for the jocks or a choir concert, through whatever niche you were in, those were your experiences, and it wasn't something like that.
I think that could be good. I think that combining those, so for like the like final piece, like the final like 30 seconds to say, so if you were a jock in high school, then I doubt that you remember, or I bet that you remember the game that you lost, or like when you lost like the big game. If you were the band geek in high school, I bet that you remember that last concert a lot more than you remember like being so like in a classroom.
And then be like, so this is the problem with public school education. It's that we focus so much on grades and statistics and test scores, but we don't focus on memories and real life experiences that shape us to be one day the president of a sorority like me, or something like that.
Yeah, I was thinking, because you just said, like, okay, so I'll say, like, if you were a jock, then I bet you remember this, and blah, blah, blah. And then could even, like, go from there and be like, schools are failing our students. How did I go from being an antisocial 15-year-old to sorority president at 21 experience? Students deserve to have these experiences too, and they're not going to get there unless something changes.
Yeah, no, that was really good. And just add, I guess some other pointers, because you have a lot to work with, definitely. And I really like your whole topic and your whole how you're this, because you're not only having a big idea in there and what you're wanting to talk about, but you're also tying in your own personal experience, which is basically, in short words, it's a story for the audience.
Right.
It's not only you're trying to persuade and give your audience a different perspective, but you're also painting a story in their head that they can see and that they can walk away and say, hey, yeah, I was that jock in high school and I didn't care about the tests. Or, hey, I was that show choir girl, or I was that horse girl in high school and I wasn't thinking about the test. So why are they thinking so heavily about why and how can public school change that? And you don't have to really say how you think public school can change that, or how they can not unfail their students, but I guess it's just the major takeaway somewhere in there. I don't even know, because I also feel like schools are doing a lot. I feel like they're trying to make that jump towards lessening, at least with my school. I think they're trying to a little bit.
Yeah.
My old school, taking less emphasis on getting into college and whatnot and doing more experiences. But I guess it's just at the end, it's how you made it. Your trial and errors and your failures have made you who you are, a stronger person. So I think it's just the major takeaway too.
Yeah, I think that like one pretty big point is that like So like as a whole, public education hasn't shifted to that way, but there's like teachers and administrators who want it to be that way, so
Mhm.
they've like tried their best.
Yeah.
But I don't think that there's like the support that they need to like make those programs.
And
like,
there's not the
truly
funding
successful.
too. Yeah. They just don't
Exactly.
put a big emphasis on it.
So I don't know how, because like it's a good point to bring up because it is like a like kind of like a hole in what
Mhm.
I'm saying, but that also opens up like a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that is coming from like teachers' pockets and things like that.
Mhm.
So that
So-
might be something to
Yeah, add in there and
forward.
think about that. So basically, when do you give your speech again?
Friday.
Friday. So I guess from here to Friday and like what we've all talked about and whatnot, maybe just some like things to think about since obviously like you've probably just been giving your speech and whatnot to yourself, and
Mhm.
since I'm a bystander to it, just think about what I had said about your voice in the beginning, because when you had done it the couple times after I had given you the whole like try to change your voice a little bit in the beginning, because I have
Mhm.
that problem too, that sounded a lot better to kind of be more, not more personable. I have that formal problem too. Add that in there, and like how you had said the whole you had changed it from talking about like just the stereotypes and then going in, I can't remember how you had done it the couple times after that, the point I gave you about, there was a different way you did it, being like, I think it honestly was just your voice that sounded different that made it a lot
I
better.
think that's all I did.
Yeah, I think that was it too. So I like that a lot, and I think your conclusion was a lot stronger too, how you had wrapped it around. So how did I go from this person in high school who felt I could only make friends with teachers to running a whole sorority? I thought that was really strong too. So I think those are definitely your strong parts, and I don't think you're going to have any problem tying together all your pieces in the middle. Just add some statistics and maybe some other stuff that we talked about how U.S. schools compare to different countries and what their rankings are compared to like life experiences. I don't even know, an internship wise and funding and whatnot. And I think honestly, you're pretty set to go. Sounds really good so far, and I'm excited to hear what your big talk will be like on Friday.
Thank you. I appreciate that.